my name is Karis, and I'm an interpreter here at Frontier Culture Museum of Virginia. Today, we're going to be talking about our Irish farm. Our Irish farm is from the region of Ulster, which is located in Northern Ireland. In the 17th century, many people were encouraged to immigrate from Scotland by the British government to help establish a Protestant stronghold in Catholic Ireland. Today, we discuss the people that would be living in a home like this in the mid 18th century who would have been the children and grandchildren of those immigrants from Scotland. We are now inside of our Irish house from Northern Ireland, from Ulster. This main room is an all-purpose room that was referred to as the kitchen. So in our kitchen, you obviously did your cooking and your food preparation. Families pretty much would eat a lot of vegetables from their kitchen gardens. Lots of soups, lots of stews, lots of oatmeal. Oats were a very important crop that they grew on their farm to feed themselves. So if you like your oatmeal porridge, you'll love living here. Oats are also ground into a flour and made into a flat, unleavened bread called an oat cake. We actually have a harness stand right here by the fire, which is used to toast oat cakes. So our family living here certainly would be gathering around this fire while eating their midday meal. Now, when it's time to actually retire for the night, where does everybody sleep? Where we actually do have a small alcove right here in the corner. We have a bed tucked in there. That's pretty much where the parents of the family would sleep, the tenant farmer and his wife. And it was known as the outshot. It's an architectural feature that was brought over from Scotland. So pretty much that's where they slept, but where did everybody else sleep? You might have a lot more work taking place in this room. You're clearing it out the best way you can. You basically might not have a loft for people to sleep in, or you might not have a space in an additional room. So in order to make space, this table is a work table. When it's not needed, it can actually fold up and attach to the wall. And it opens up all this space where you can actually place straw pallets on the floor and more family members have a place to go to bed at night. Now, as you have noticed, I do have a fire right here. It is actually a fire that's burning wood, and wood is actually a scarce resource in 18th century Ireland. So for the average tenant farmer, it just doesn't make sense to be burning a fuel that is more costly. So families would have peat digging rights written into their leases, which gave them the right to go into the marshes, into the peat bogs, and dig peat. So here's some peat right here. All it is plant matter. They're plants that lived a long time ago in the bog, in the marsh, have died and sunk down into the wetness, into the water. And our farmer would dig up this sponge-like material, let it dry, and then haul it home to burn in order to stay warm and to also get the food cooked. So it is a great resource, very cost effective, and it works very well to get things accomplished. Every now and then, the peat might be a little damp, or your chimney just might not draw very well. So from time to time, it might not be that unusual to have some smoke collecting in your house. So you have smoke that's kind of gathering around in here, not very pleasant. You might be coming in for a meal and you want to sit down and have your bowl of porridge, And sitting in your best chair in your home might not be the best place to sit because of the smoke. So you can see this really fine chair here. Families that would have had one might not want to sit on it because you're much higher up off the floor and your head is in the smoke. So where you would prefer to sit is on these little creepy stools, so your head is below the smoke level. People would gather around the hearth, sometimes eating food out of a common vessel. And if you got a little too warm by the fire, you can kind of creep forwards, or you can actually creep backwards if you're a little bit too warm without ever having to get up. So they get their name, creepy stools. So pretty much peat does conserve on a very important resource. So wood being very, very conservative, you don't really want to use a lot in the construction of your home. So our house walls that you see right there are actually quarried limestone. We have an inner stone wall and an outer stone wall and loose rubble in between to help brace these walls and give them the strength that they need to support the weight of a roof. So our families would find probably one of the most expensive parts of building a really nice house like this is the rafters that you see up there. Over the rafters are saplings, and then over them is actually sod, which is the grass with the grass roots clinging to the dirt. The saplings are known as wattles, and the dirt is known as the scrub. So you're using materials that are more cost effective than just straight out tons of wood. The outside of our roof, which is responsible for shedding the water, is actually reed. Another common material that farmers used besides reed that was probably more prevalent was just the straw from your rye harvest. So they're using things that are around the farm that cost very little money to try to reduce the amount of wood that you actually need in the construction of a home. You are in our second room in our Irish house from Ulster in Northern Ireland. Many people sometimes use their second room, if they had one, as a workshop. We actually have a loom right here. Many folks were involved in the linen industry. It was extremely common for the farmer to be working the farm during the day, coming in the late afternoon, evening, sitting at the loom and actually taking the yarns that have been produced and weave it into a web of linen cloth. This is actually a web of linen cloth that came from our looms. Our families were very concerned about producing enough product to sell so they can pay their rent. If you live here in the mid-18th century, you are not a landowner, you are a tenant. And so families living here would have been leasing. Common leases in our time period would have been 21-year leases, 31-year leases, and sometimes even 3 lifetime leases. So people are concerned about making enough money, and they're relying on the linen industry to help them accomplish that goal. But linen, what is linen? Linen actually is made from a plant called flax. So we have some flax right here that was grown on our farm. This plant has fiber that's inside the stalk that's extracted by rotting it, crushing it, scraping it, and combing it. That is what a spinner is going to turn into a thread or a yarn. So we have a distaff here of fiber from the stalk of the flax plant for the spinner to start working on the yarns. So it is very typical for the women in the family to be producing yarns for the weaver. It is very hard for women to keep up with a weaver. So it is not that unusual for some farmers to buy additional yarns from other families that are not weaving in the linen industry. So here's some yarn that we have actually spun on our spinning wheels that'll be used on the loom. Many families that are leasing farms, like our farm from Ulster in Northern Ireland, would be contemplating immigration. Families enjoyed long-term leases. These leases are expiring. Landlords are now free to raise rents, and rents are going up dramatically. Families are finding that the linen industry is unable to help produce enough money to meet these demands. Linen cloth is not selling for as much money due to the market being flooded, due to droughts, and due to the fact that there is a new fabric that is becoming very much sought after, Indian cotton. Thank you for joining us on our virtual tour of the Irish farm, and I hope to see you soon.